I would say it's like a Sufism sect, one called White Mountain Group, another called Black Mountain Group. They were power struggling, and it was lasted like 100 years. So in this time, the whole nation became very poor, backward, and it was a long time internal struggle. And when that happened, the Mongol come back from Mongolia to Jungwaria. It was south part of the East Turkestan, and they invaded the north part, and then whole nation was under the Mongol, again Buddhism Mongols rule. End of the Mongols rule, the Manchun conquered China first. In 1664, Manchun dynasty's army crossed the Great Wall, come to China, and within 10 years they conquered China. After they conquered China, they started to border with our region in East Turkestan and also under the Mongols' rule. Then the Mongol tried to kick the Manchun out from border. Then they fight with Manchun. This created another big fighting inside the Uyghur region with the Manchun. And Manchun, for solve the problem, they conquered the Mongol. They killed almost like 40% of the population of the Mongol in our region. And then after they conquered the Mongol, also conquered our land. So we have become part of the Manchun dynasty. Actually, they are not Chinese. They are another one minority group. They conquered China. After 100 years, they come to conquer us. And then we also become part of that empire after China was part of that empire 100 years. Then in this time, we are still under the Manchun dynasty. We in a struggle, try to get our independence. So in this period, happened a few times uprising. It called Boja uprising, Jahangir Boja, and Valley Boja. They did a lot uprising, and sometimes they kicked out the Manchun, but then Manchun come back again. So this was a long 100 years. Then come to the 19th century, probably already some previous speaker talking about him. He is a Crimean Tatar. He lives in Kazan. His name is Ismail by Garsperali, and some Gasperinsky, some call his name. And his influence was pretty much for the Central Asian Turkish people, include Uyghur, very strong. It was come with also the Islamic world's awakening in the late 18th and 19th century early. He first time published a journal called Tarjuma. Tarjuma means translation or interpretation. And his journal was printed in currently Crimea's Kazan. And this journal was spread out all over to our land. And so we are all reading it, our father's generation, they were reading it, and they got some enlightenment. So in this period, we had Jadidism. I'm sure most of you know that Jadidism is an enlightenment in the Muslim world, especially in the Central Asia. It was new school set up. And then with that, Abdul Qadir Damullah, he studied, he is from Kashgar. He studied in India and went to Egypt. He studied in Azhar, and then he went to Turkey and come back. He set up a first Jadidism new style school in Kashgar. But he had some conflict with old guard ulama. So the Manchu Imperial used some trick, so some Uyghur attacked him, and one day he was murdered to death by Uyghur. It's very unfortunate. And then come another one family called Musawai family. They set up another one school, and then we started having first factory in Ulja, electricity, printing house set up in Ulja, mostly by Musawai family. They are all saved from the Kashgar. Masood Sabri, this Uyghur, he is very famous intellectual. He died in 1950 in the Chinese jail. He was the first group of students, went to Turkey, studied medicine over there, and also bring back some new enlightenment, new ideology, some nationalism ideology too. And he came back in Uzbekistan, set up his school and his hospital. So he is very influential in our region's modern history. He had some impact, footprint in our modern history. And then come to this 19th century early, Manchu dynasty was overthrown by the Chinese nationalism in 1911. Immediately after the Manchu dynasty was thrown away, the Chinese was fragmented. All provinces now become independent. And actually at the time when the Chinese nationalist government set up, they announced 18 provinces. This 18 province not included Uzbekistan, no Tibet, no Mongolia. No Mongolia. But in our region, last governor was a Chinese from Manchu dynasty, and he ruled pretty much independent in our region, not following the national government from China, more close to the Russian side. So when it comes to 1920s and 30s, Uyghur people started to get some new ideology and started to build back their nation. So the uprising happened, and we consequently set up two independent republics in part of Uzbekistan. The first one was called Islamic Republic of Uzbekistan. I believe it's in Islamic world probably the first one with the Republic and Islamic. First one. And this is the passport the government issued to some. They are still having in Saudi, some Uyghurs still using it. And this was our flag at the Islamic Republic. This is our emblem, national emblem. And this first republic was started by, in the earliest one is Hoji Niyaz Haji. He was from most east part of the Uzbekistan. His name is Hoji Niyaz. Haji is title for him. He was completed his Hajj pilgrimage. So given the Hajj title in our land. And this Mahmud Muhyiddin, he is his companion, and later becomes the defense minister. And this Timur Ali, he is also from central Uzbekistan. This is from north part. Here this is from Kyrgyz army. They are all joined together with us. And this is President Hoji Niyaz Haji, national flag. This was the cabinet for First Uzbekistan Republic. He is the Prime Minister, Sabit Tamulaji. He played a very critical role in setting up First Uzbekistan Republic. Muhammad Ibn Bura, he died in the 60s in Istanbul. he fought until his last for the East Turkestan. This was a constitution about the East Turkestan. It was full-fledged a government set up. And this letter was written to British, appealing for their recognition and help at the time. This was National Army, and our tragedy is pretty much come from our neighbor. At the time, first Islamic Republic set up, our side is, in Indian side is British, and other side is Russian. They made our land as a buffer zone, so they don't want us to get independent. And it's Hindu side, if I say, the Republic government leadership too much close to the British side, so Soviet felt that was threatened to the Central Asia, so they helped the Chinese, and they actually used the military, invaded our country at the time, under this guy's request. His name is Shirsai, and Stalin sent the military. This was a Chinese Muslim general. They worked together to make the republic collapse. And the Second Republic, this was pretty much under the Soviets' guidance, Soviet support. Some say it's actually a Soviet puppet government, but personally I disagree, because the war, the fighting, and the setup was all is Uyghur and Turkestan, East Turkestan people, not the Soviet. Soviet giving the weapon, give some military aid. He's Ilham Turek, he is Uzbek, he is not Uyghur. We lived Uzbek, Uyghur together, so he becomes the first president. Ahmadjan Qasmi, he is the second president. This was Second Republic, we call it Second Republic for the East Turkestan Republic, flag and national emblem. And I intentionally put this photo for, he is a Russian, he is a Tatar, he is a Kazakh, he is a Kyrgyz. So this second East Turkestan Republic, very inclusive government. Even though Uyghur is the majority, the president, second president was Uyghur, but it is very inclusive, include all nations living with us together. So it's very inclusive and diverse government. This is the National Army, and this is the Education Minister, consequently. He is the first one become the Xinjiang after the communist takeover of East Turkestan. He is the first one become loyal to the communists and become the first governor of our region. The National Army and Medallion at the time used. The country existed from 45 to 49. And both two republics was set up in 12th of November, the same day. And after the Yalta meeting, Three Power and the Chinese nationalist President Chiang Kai-shek, the Soviets made a deal with the Chinese, and then they forced our East Turkestan government delegate to sign this pact, settlement pact. So our delegate, under the Russians, Soviets pressure, they give up the independent status and become one province of China in 45. But the status quo was still over there. They existed until 49, the communists come in. National Army was still over there. And in 1949, this is the site, it is behind the Mao Zedong. This is the 1st October in 1949, the Chinese People's Republic Establishment Day, and we will become part of the communist region. And immediately had some uprising. His name is Osman Islam. He is a Kazakh. Mostly people give him Osman Batur. And this was in 1955, October, the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region was set up by the central government. They are recognizing Uyghurs' autonomous right in the constitution, in the legal, but it's not in content. That's our history, and in the modern day, after the communist takeover, we had a lot of plight, 10 years of cultural revolution. Our intellectual was jailed, and some of them killed, and in 10 years, so-called cultural revolution, the mosque was closed, and Uyghur people was forced to eat pork, drink wine, and burn all the Islamic books until 1978. The Mao Zedong died, and then the reform started in China. The communists loosened their control, so Uyghur people coming back to reestablish their identity, develop their education, also their identity. And then in 2009, in 4th of July, in Urumqi, capital city, because of some Uyghur was attacked by the Chinese mob and killed 12 Uyghur, university student go to the street, did a demonstration, asking the government to do something, punish the perpetrator. But government instead used the military, shoot them, and the student died in the morning. Then the Uyghur people in the capital city had a big uprising. This changed the whole dynamic of the Uyghur people with the Chinese government's the long, intense relationship. So since then, the Chinese government, with one Chinese academy, gave a speech in a university, and with his saying, he said, if the Western country, specifically America, if happen to conflict with China, fight with China, they can mobilize in one night 40,000 to 50,000 Uyghur to fight alongside America. So the Uyghur people is a threat to China's national interest. This speech was given in a Chinese university by a Chinese military academy. Then this turned out to be very Chinese nationalism, chauvinism. The government started to shift all the policy to crack down Uyghur and to arrest the intellectual, shut down the internet. So starting from 2016, the governor was changed to come another one guy from Tibet. He started first in early 2016, setting up some police station, 100-meter one police station with surveillance equipment all around the street. Then, starting from 2017, we heard they are setting up some school holding all Uyghurs inside. Initially, they called it re-education camp. And after we exposed it, some media exposed it, they changed the name again to vocational training school. Then last month, it changed it the third time, saying it's a boarding school to fight with extremism. The Chinese government passed a law called de-extremism law. In that law, they deemed 72 appearance is as extreme. If you have beard, you are 45 years younger, then you are extremism. If you have hijab, you are extremism.